Well, welcome back to our next edition of What's Up America with Mike Kara, as always proudly broadcasting from Ocoee, Florida, USA, planet Earth. And my guest today is Grant Maloy Smith, who is a Billboard Top 10 recording artist and Music Row country breakout charting songwriter of American roots music. And he has his latest album is Appalachia, American Stories, and it's out right now. We're going to talk about some of the songs, but Grant, it's such a pleasure and honor that you could join me today and tell us all about, your great music. And first of all, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about your background and where your love and passion for music comes from?
Yeah, well, hey, thank you. And thanks, Mike, for having me on today. I appreciate it. I'm an American roots singer-songwriter, so I've been doing that for a number of years. American roots is it's kind of the land of the island of misfit toys. It's not exactly country music. It's not exactly folk music. It's not exactly anything or bluegrass. It's sort of a combination of all those. It's the roots of of the American music experience, which then split off into all those other things I just mentioned, like country and so on. But it has a storytelling tradition. And I mean, that's what I really like, writing songs that tell a story. And the last few albums I've been making, like the Dust Bowl from a few years ago, and now this new one, Appalachia, American Stories, are really just filled with that, trying to, get across the American experience using music to do that. That's what I really like to do, and I plan to do that until I drop dead. That's what I just love doing. So.
Oh, there you go. So it's great, Grant. We had a chance to listen to some of your music, and I guess you could definitely call these story songs. I mean, you put a lot of time and effort, I know, into these songs, and you care a lot about them. But I mean, is there a lot of research that goes into these songs? You try to make them historically accurate then?
Yeah, very much so. And it's not like the songs are history lessons or anything, although a couple of them could be construed. You could use them as a teaching aid, maybe if you're teaching about a particular topic. But what I really try to get across, I do several years of research. I did 3 years on the previous record and more than 3 years on this one, is to capture, when you're writing 12 songs that are about 4 minutes long each, I mean, you can't really give a master's thesis in anything, right? You don't have enough time or words to do that. But you can try to capture the essence of the key topics or the key elements that go into something. So in this record, Appalachia, I try to capture the essence of the culture, and that's kind of amorphous. That's kind of difficult to do, but you can't. I think music has the ability, it has the vocabulary beyond just the words that are in a song, which are very few, really, when you think about it, unless you're Bob Dylan and you write a lyric that's 12 feet long. But normally, you don't have that many words to get across. So but music can do that. It has a different voice that reaches people at a different level. So I think that's the hardest part, I think, is trying to capture the spirit of a place or a time or an event. You can't put it into words because it's beyond words. Music hits people at a different level, at a very deep level. And but there are big topics, like in Appalachia, there's coal mining, the whole rise and fall of coal mining, and the isolation that the people faced living in the hills. And this is where my family actually comes from, so I know a lot about it. And the people, early Americans went into the hills of Appalachia because they wanted to be isolated, actually. But it's a double-edged sword, because if you get cut off from the rest of the country culturally, it also affects. Maybe the education isn't as good as it is closer to the population centers, right? Things like that. And isolation can breed people feeling lonely or having substance abuse problems. So it's a big ball of things that make up the culture of Appalachia. And it's misunderstood, by the rest of the country. There's a lot of stereotypes about hillbillies and all that kind of stuff. And there's always a grain of truth in every stereotype, but it's not like it's portrayed in Hollywood. They don't do a very good job of fairly reporting or chronicling what Appalachia is like. I don't mean to run on, but I mean, it's really a beautiful part of the country. Everybody should see it at least once. It's absolutely gorgeous. So there's, like everything else, there's good, there's bad, there's somewhere in the middle is the truth. But I love the region. I think it's beautiful and the people are good.
Oh, okay. Okay. So you mentioned, Grant, that your family is from that area. So I mean, did that help you? I mean, having that inspiration, knowing that your parents were going through some of the things that you're going to write about then.
Yeah, yeah, very much so. In fact, there's a song about my mother on the album. It's called "The Red-Haired Girl from Hazard." She was from Hazard, Kentucky, and so was my grandmother and her mother and her mother and her mother, and all the way back about 250 years, just about. So yeah, I mean that having that connection, even though I personally didn't grow up there because my parents moved away, when I was very little. So, but still, I have lots of people there, and I go there a lot, and I feel connected to it because I have so much history there. I drive around. I've got surnames in my family history like McIntyre and Caldwell and whole list of them. And when I drive around in southern Kentucky, southeastern Kentucky, I see like McIntyre this, and then I look across the street and I see Caudle, what another store with one of my family names in there, where I've got 50 relatives from that name. It's hard not to feel connected.
Oh, okay. And now, Grant, we talk about, the great lyrics and, your inspirations and all that, but I also want to talk about, the actual music, the melodies that go along with it and your process of that. I mean, is there certain ways you go about it? I mean, I'm assuming, do you write the song first and then you say, I got to put melodies in or, music, or do you have the music beforehand?
That depends. It happens a little bit differently every time, actually. Sometimes I'm just messing around with the guitar and I find something that I like and then I develop it. So it starts from the music and then I figure out what I want it to be about. And that's normally kind of suggested by what you're playing. If you're playing a happy thing, you're probably not going to write a sad song, and vice versa. Other times I think I've got to have a song about from a coal miner's point of view, for example. Right through his eyes, what he's looking back at his life. Now he's older and he's broken up and he's hurting, but he's also proud that he supported his family, he fed his children for all those years, all those decades. Then I think, okay, how should that be expressed in music? What's the tone of it? And then normally I'll pick up the guitar and just try to find the right musical feeling, the right motif for that song, the right rhythm, the right tempo, the right modality, chord-wise or key-wise. So it can happen those two ways. It can happen somewhere in the middle where I get half an idea and then I work the music and then, you never know. It's like making a very strange cake. Every time the ingredients are slightly different.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, for you, Grant, so you get these songs down. Is there a lot of changes that go into these songs, when you record them, or once you get something down, you stick with it?
Well, normally it's a process when you bring other people in to get the song, to create the recording. So when you just play a song by yourself on the guitar, you have to do it you're kind of limited because you have to play and sing at the same time. You can't play 12 different things at once. So there's a big process that goes into the next step, which is to develop arrangements and then, for other instruments, and then figure out when they're going to come in, what they're going to do, when they're going to go out, maybe. That's a whole other process. And I normally do a lot of that here in my studio before we go into the real studio and, bring in the players to play. Because I like to develop my own arrangements to figure out kind of how I want the song to happen. How it builds up from, should it start with just a guitar and then build up to a whole thing, or should it start with the whole band playing? Who knows? Or some combination. Normally you build a song. Typically that's how songs usually are done, but you can do it different ways to, so you're not boring. You don't want every song to be the same or to have the same kind of arrangement, because I find that very boring. I've heard a few records where it's like the same. It sounds great, but it's like the same thing. Every song starts with drums going boom boom boom, and then the band comes in, and the next song is do 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 do, and then the band, like after about 5 of those, I'm like, I eject the CD because it's like it's so boring. You gotta mix it up. You make people want to hear the next song, and not know what it's going to sound like. So there's a lot that goes into it. It's kind of like three-dimensional chess or doing a three-dimensional crossword puzzle. Everything has to work on different levels and in different combinations with each other. Just like writing a song is the same thing. You have a melody, then you have the music behind it, you have the words, And the words have to feel like they were meant to go with the melody. They shouldn't feel like you're jamming the words into a melody that you've already written. It has to feel like the song was just there and I just revealed it. Not like I wrote it, like a scientific paper. Songs have to feel organic, otherwise I don't think people enjoy them that much.
Right. So you were talking, Grant, about different tempos and different feels. Like, I mean, certain songs have certain emotions, and if there's certain times where you want a fast, upbeat song, and then more of a slower song. So I mean, you mentioned that you get that from listening or just feeling the song, or how does that work?
Yeah, I think in the case of this record, for example, I wanted to have, like you said, the combination of things. Songs that are very serious and maybe a little bit dark because they're about a serious topic. Like a guy who's been under a coal mine for the last 50 years. That's not a happy-go-lucky ding-ding-ding kind of song. That's a serious song. That's a drama. It's not a comedy. Whereas other songs, I want to have a light feeling, and I want people to be able to tap their toe when they hear it, and want to sing along maybe. Songs that make you feel good, that give you energy, and then you put energy back into them. And then there's songs that are more about feelings of love or expansiveness, that kind of thing. Powerful emotions, positive emotions. Maybe songs about faith, because that's a big topic in Appalachia. So yeah, I think if you don't do all that, you're not telling a good story. What would a movie be like if it didn't have any range of emotions or tension, and then a release of the tension because they saved the baby from falling off the, you want to have drama and you want to have ups and downs of emotions. That's what makes a good story, I think, overall. So my challenge was I have to write a song where each one is like that, but then all 12 of them have to also do that as a unit, as an album. That's kind of a challenge, but what else do I have to do?
Right.
Mow the grass, maybe?
Yeah. Okay, Grant. So I want to talk a little bit about these songs, and they're all from this Appalachia American Stories. And I'll just tell our audience that you had sent actually the whole album. You had suggested 3 songs, and I've decided to take those suggestions because they seem like great songs. So if we're going to go through them, and you can tell us a little background about them. The first one is "The Coal Comes Up." Can you tell us about this song?
Yeah, that's the one I mentioned a minute ago. I didn't give it its name though, but it's the one I said where looking through the eyes of a coal miner at the end of his career, maybe the end of his life. And he's looking back, he's feeling proud that he supported his family and put meals on the table, but he's busted up a bit. He's been, that's very hard work down there and very dangerous work. And it's backbreaking, sometimes literally. I mean, you're crouching down and it's hard to work. It's very hard and dangerous. So you get the feeling of all the danger and the trauma and the stress, but also he's proud of what he did. He supported his family, doing honest work every single day. That's essentially what that song's about.
Oh, okay. And now the next song we have is called "Down to Hatchabee Road." Could you tell us about this one?
Yeah, that's the toe tapper kind of a song where you're gonna, you just can't help your leg is gonna start tapping. So it's about river baptisms. That's a real big thing in the South in general, and in Appalachia in particular, where if you get baptized, it's not just like a little drop of water in your forehead. It's like you go down in the river, and the preacher or the minister will lower you down, and you go under the water, completely under the water, and come back up. That's a big thing down there. I've seen them, a bunch of them, and it's really a joyous experience. You have to see it to understand it. It's very powerful. That's what that song's about.
Okay, and now we have one. I like the title, and we all know about Gas Station Chicken, but can you tell us a little bit about this one here?
That's definitely the most lighthearted song on the record. It's also maybe not quite as fast or toe tapping as the previous one, but it's up there. It's meant just to be a nice, relaxing song about one of my favorite things to eat when I'm driving around the hills is you wouldn't believe it. It's not. I'm not talking about gas stations that put out like they get chicken out of the freezer that it's already made and they just microwave. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a little hole in the wall gas station, family owned, where they actually make from scratch fried chicken right there. And I'll tell you what, pretty good. So you gotta eat it once in a while. I don't want to eat it too much because it's not that healthy, but sure is good.
Oh, great, great. So, I mean, with these songs from this album, I mean, were these songs that, you had written, or the idea is that, you wanted to specifically write all these songs for this specific album then?
Absolutely, yeah. I spent 3 years doing it. I probably wrote 40 songs for this record. And you can't put 40 songs on a record. So I had to pick the 10 or 12, in this case it's 12, that captured the essence of the culture of Appalachia, some of the history, the important marks of history like the coal mining and that kind of thing. And also captured the spirit of the region, which has a lot to do with family and faith. Those are very important things, particularly in that part of our country. Family is more important than anything to most Appalachians. Faith is right up there too. And also, during World War II and after, a lot of Appalachians left the region because they didn't have any more jobs. They couldn't find work, and they didn't want to go in the coal mine. The coal mining jobs were steadily declining anyway. So they went up north, like to Ohio and Michigan and so on, looking for jobs because there were lots of jobs there in the car industry and other industries. That's our Rust Belt. We had a lot of industry there, and we still do, but it was particularly big in the 40s and 50s and 60s before jobs started going to other countries. So, but they felt really homesick. They would go up there and live in Ohio and Michigan, but it's not home. They grew up in a different culture. Appalachians have their own way of singing. They have their own way of drinking. They have their own way of eating, their own way of praying, their own way of everything. And you can't find it outside the region, really. So there's a theme of homesickness on the record too, and love of the mountains. Mountains are actually a character in the story.
Oh, great. And you were talking about the different culture and the way of life. But I mean, I understand that I mean, at least I hear that there's like certain words or certain slang or certain phrases that are popular in that area too, then that are unique to the area.
Yeah, I guess a certain way of expressing yourself. Yeah, that's true. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but holler is one good example. It's really just means a valley. So you say the hills and the hollers, and it just means the hill, the mountains and the valleys between them. So holler is a word it's really hollow, but it's pronounced holler, and you don't hear that anywhere else in the world. I don't think they came from Appalachia. That's a good example.
Okay. So now you mentioned for this, Appalachia album, you had 38 songs. You used 12. I mean, you wrote that. So, I mean, do you have any plans for all those other songs that you had there?
Some I'll turn some into other things. Yeah, or I'll use them at shows I'll play them, but I won't put them on a record probably just because of the expense. But no song goes wasted ultimately. Even if you don't do anything with it, you learn by writing. You learn how to write better. So
okay.
Most of them will appear in some form or another.
Right. So now I wanted to talk a little bit about this other, before this you had an album called Dust Bowl American Stories. And,
right.
I think that some of us know a little bit. I think it's pretty much like, with history class, okay, read pages 100 to 105, and that's about the extent of it. But I mean, for you had the opportunity then to research this and get the facts. So, I mean, these songs at least, again, are accurate, and they give you a little idea of the Dust Bowl, huh?
Very much so. Yeah, if you listen to that and you read the liner notes, you'll end up knowing a lot more about the Dust Bowl than you knew before. That's for sure. Yeah, I spent 3 years, researching that, reading dozens of books and all kinds of things. somebody had done a series of interviews with Dust Bowl survivors. I think it was in the 70s. So they were old already. They're probably all gone by this point because they'd be 100 years old or 90 years old. But those were very instructive because they gave you a glimpse past the facts and the figures, that we can easily access to what it was actually like to live in a time where there were enormous dust storms coming, sometimes 10, 20 a year, and they would just roll over the plains and just leave death and destruction everywhere they went. They were unbelievable. It was like something out of a science fiction movie. It was only like 80 years ago that this happened, right? 90 years ago that it happened. Basically, during the 30s, in the Great Plains, the epicenter was the little Florida, sorry, I almost said Florida Panhandle, the Oklahoma Panhandle. I'm from the Florida Panhandle. And that's the epicenter, but it was huge. It covered millions and millions of square miles from Texas, Kansas, and Missouri, and Arkansas, even out to Wyoming, believe it or not, and up into Canada, where it didn't rain for most of the decade. So the sun was unbelievable. Like in 1932, I think it was like 115 degrees on the average day in Oklahoma, and there was no rain. The sun was relentless, and it just killed everything. Nothing would grow. The animals were dying. And so if you have that going on for 8 or 9 years, that is devastating. The state of Oklahoma lost 15% of its population in those years. They all left. There was nothing to eat, no work, nothing to grow, nothing would grow. So it was an unbelievable time in our country's history. A lot of people know the book from Steinbeck, The Grapes of Wrath, which chronicles some of the Okies or Oklahomans heading out to the California Central Valley, like Bakersfield area, looking for work, because there is still to this day lots of agriculture out there in that Central Valley, lots of it. And that's the work they knew how to do. But they weren't treated too well, because they came and imagine in your town if all of a sudden 300,000 people showed up saying, I need a job. It would be impossible, right, to handle. And back then there were no rules or regulations about how people were treated either. So they could just say, you get $1 for a week, and they would have to take it. Otherwise, there would be a line of 50 people that would take that job. So it was really a difficult time in our country's history. Very difficult. People don't realize how bad it was, and it wasn't that long ago.
Okay, Grant. So I want to talk a little bit about, where, you're performing. I mean, is things opening up where you are? I mean, you have a chance to tour out a lot, or?
Not yet. Right now, because the album, the Appalachia record just came out, I'm spending my time doing promotion, like this interview, for example, and things like that. I'm also making videos. I already made a video for the Coal Comes Up song. I went down in a coal mine in eastern Kentucky and made that video back in April. And next week, I'm going to head down to eastern Tennessee and make 2 different videos for the Down to Hatchby Road song that you're going to play, and also for another song that's about faith on the record called I Found Faith. We're going to shoot that in a church, actually, with a lot of people. That's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm going to spend my time over the next few months doing that, and then I think around September I'm going to start to do some shows again, but I haven't really gotten... I have a few things planned, but not a whole lot of things yet. It's not that open here, and it's getting better every day. So I am looking forward to going back and playing live again. It's been way too long.
Oh, so for you, Grant, have you done any of these like Facebook shows or virtual shows or anything like that, or?
Yeah, I did some of those last year. I did maybe 10 or 15 of them. I have to be honest that I didn't really like them because there's no people. I'm staring like I am. I sit right here and stare at the little green dot. And unlike right now, I can see your face. But when you're doing the show, you can't see anybody. All you can see is yourself, which I'm not really interested in. And maybe once in a while, you can't really see that well when you're doing it either. You can't. Maybe someone puts a little clap icon or something. Believe me, that's not the same as an audience, a real audience in the same room. So when they were hosted by someone who would interact with me a lot, I enjoyed them more. But just me playing song after song and not hearing really any reaction, very, very difficult. But that's all we had for a year, so that's what we did.
Okay. Grant, so you have a website and all sorts of social media then, or?
Yeah, yeah. If you go, use my three names: Grant Maloy, Maloy. So just one L in there, Smith, and you can either put hyphens between the three names or not. It'll work. It'll go to the one with the hyphens because that's the real one. GrantMaloySmith.com, and from there you can listen to samples from all the records, especially the new one, and it has links to all of my social media, all that. It's all right there on the website. It has links to the Facebook and the YouTube and all the rest of that. It's all there.
And you mentioned, Grant, that you do have a YouTube channel, and some of these, new songs from this new album is going to be made into videos. Was that it?
Yeah. Yep. There's one already. The coal comes up videos there. The one I shot in a coal mine, and the ones I'm doing next week will be there as soon as I can get them edited. So you'll be able to see the songs as well as hear them on YouTube.
So you, for this video, were able to just go in and film in a coal mine? I mean, you asked somebody, hey, can I come and do a video at your coal mine, or how did that work?
But it's actually true. That's what happened. The coal mine has been not used for coal for a long time, maybe 40 years or 50. I think since the late 60s. And they turned it into a visitor center. Now, the visitor center is closed because of COVID. It's not open yet. Has been closed for more than a year. And they were doing work in there. They brought crews in to, make it better for tourists to come through, like better walkways and lighting and that kind of thing. But so it was really not available for me to go in there except on Sunday because no one was working on Sunday. So they allowed me to go in there with a small crew and shoot on a Sunday, which was very nice of them to do. It's Portal 31 in Eastern Kentucky in Harlan County. Really nice people, and they'll be open, I'm sure. I don't know when, but they'll be open again, and people will be able to go walk through. It's pretty interesting to do.
Oh, great. Yeah. And now if someone wants to, purchase these songs or get this new album, is there certain sites? Should they go to your website, or where's the best place to buy this album?
Well, if you want the real album, and the way I made it is, I should have brought one here to show you, but it comes in a big box set. And you can get it, and it has a book too, because I wrote a book that goes with this whole thing. And the box set includes the book, obviously, and a CD, or in addition, you can get the CD and a regular LP, a 33 1/3 RPM vinyl LP, just like the old days. So that's the ultimate one. You can get it either way, with or without the LP. It's a little less expensive without the LP because they cost a lot to make. Right there on my website. And I think if you go there now, there's a coupon that will pop up that'll give you $10 discount off whichever one you want to get. If you're purely a digital person and you don't want the box set, then you can buy it from either iTunes or from Amazon.
Okay. And Grant, you mentioned that you wrote a book with this new album, Appalachia. So, I mean, was there a lot of research that went into that book, or I mean, what is kind of the book about?
Well, basically, what it's how records used to have liner notes where they would show the lyrics and maybe a picture or something, and then who played what on it, the credits. Well, if you imagine that and multiply it by about 50, that's what I did. So it's the liner notes on steroids. So I've written, in some cases, 4 or 5 pages, and the pages are 11 by 11 inches, right? So it's a lot of writing about what's behind it, particularly the songs that are historical in nature, like The Coal Comes Up, because there's a big backstory about the whole rise and fall of coal and what it means, what it meant to the region, what it still means to the region in some ways, and so on. And some of the other, there's another historical song about the biggest coal mining disaster we ever had. It happened in West Virginia about 110 years ago. So there's a whole history of that there, so that when you read the lyrics to the song, they really make sense. I mean, they do make sense by themselves anyway, but when you read the backstory, and then you hear the song, you're like, oh, and now I know what every single word there means and why he said that. It just gives a lot more context to the songs. Why is that song included, and what does it mean in the history or in the culture of Appalachia. So, I mean, it was a lot of work to do the book, but I was doing all the research anyway, and why not share that? I think it helps people appreciate the songs more to read what went into them. What's the source of material for the song itself?
Okay, Grant, and that's great. So we encourage everyone to look for this new album. You said it's available, on CDs and LPs, and of course digital downloads, and you probably could get them individually, but we recommend you get them all. I mean, it's pretty much a story album, so I mean, it's great that you could listen to all of the songs, not necessarily all at once, but all together, to get that experience of what you're trying to say then.
Right. It's meant to be an album. It's like the old days. I know today it's not an album culture. Everyone's about MP3s, and they stream and then they shuffle to another song. I don't care about that. I'm a storyteller. Imagine you tell Steven Spielberg, I'm not comparing myself to him, but like you have to make a movie, Steven, but also make it so that we can watch each section and buy it for like $1 and listen to only that, like one little section of the movie where the alien comes down. But we don't care about the rest of your movie. He would flip up his middle finger, right? Look, I'm making a movie. I'm not making one scene of a movie. I'm making a movie. You need to watch it from beginning to end. And that's, I like that. I like that idea. And few people do that with albums anymore, so maybe I'm crazy, but that's what I like to do. So no one can stop me.
Oh, yeah, and there you go. Okay, Grant, before we go, I mean, so right now you've got this great album, and we encourage everyone to, check that out. But I mean, are you coming up with new ideas, or you have in the back of your mind another sort of, theme going, or anything that you could share with us now, or?
Well, I can share that I'm trying to come up with the theme for the next record because I need to start it in some way, even though I don't have a lot of time right now, but I need to at least be thinking about it, So I don't know what it's going to be. I have a few ideas, but I'm open to all suggestions. So if anybody has a suggestion about it has to be American based, because that's my theme. These are called American Stories records. So I want it to be about something relevant to our country here. Something that connects to something important, either culturally or historically, that would work well with my kind of music. If it's some inner city story, it probably wouldn't work well with my, hillbilly style. It wouldn't work that well. But it's got to be relevant to that. So on my website, there's a chat function. Anybody can go there. You can send a message on the chat function, and it'll go directly to me. It doesn't go to anybody else. No one else can see it except me. So if you want to give me some ideas, I'd be happy to. I'm open to all suggestions. I have several ideas, but I haven't resonated with one yet where I felt like that's the one. I had a moment with Dust Bowl where that's it. That's exactly what I have to write. And as soon as I was done with that, I knew Appalachia had to be the next one because of my personal connections to it. But I don't know what the next one's going to be. I'm open to all suggestions. So everybody out there, please tell me what you think. Please give me another idea.
So all suggestions, but maybe not so much moonshine runners.
I'm sure I had a few in my family. No doubt about it.
Okay, Greg, we really do appreciate your time, and we encourage everyone to get the album. Any final thoughts or anything else you'd like to mention here?
No, I just thank you very much for having me on your show today. I really appreciate it. And, I hope to hear from some of your audience on my website. It's no commitment. You can just go chat with me. You don't have to sign up or buy anything to do that. So I hope to hear from people. And thank you again for having me on today.
Oh, okay. And can you give your website one final time, please?
Yeah, I should get a card to hold up, shouldn't I? It's Grant-Maloy, MALOY-Smith.com. If you go there, you'll find everything you want to know about me and probably more.
Okay. My guest has been Grant Maloy Smith, and we encourage everyone to check out his new album, Appalachia, American Stories. And you've been listening to the What's Up America with Mike Kerr, as always, proudly broadcasting from Maloy, Florida, USA, planet Earth. And please catch us again next time